You're watching Cape Media News, brought to you by Cape Media Center.
Tonight on Cape Media News, Harwich discusses filling potholes.
Plus, Citizens for Global Solutions opens a Cape and Islands chapter.
And a look at Chatham's Marone Maritime Center.
These stories and more are coming up next on Cape Media News.
Good evening. It is July 12th, and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyperlocal news that matters. I'm Lauren Williamson.
And I'm Maxie Davidson. During a recent Harwich Select Board meeting, debate was sparked amongst board members about whether the town should address potholes and trenches on Hawks Nest Road. Board member Michael McCaskill raised the issue after hearing concerns from residents who believe the road is unsafe and inaccessible. However, a previous lawsuit established that the town is not required to maintain the road because it serves as an entryway to a state national park. The lawsuit, among other considerations, led the other board members to take the stance that they should not take any action. Here's a look at some of the discussion.
Seems to be the only road that continues to come back to ask to fill in potholes. So my request is simple. My request is not related to Bob Freitas or anyone else that lives on that road, although I have had support from property owners and homeowners. But it is more, that is the entrance to the park. We're blessed to have Hawks Nest State Park in our town, and it would be great if all residents can use it, not just those with lift kits and big tires. The request is not to pave Hawks Nest Road. The request is to fill some trenches and some potholes.
I see absolutely no reason to upgrade the road so that people can traverse it more easily, unless the residents come in here and say, I want to see that happen. I don't see a whole bunch of people there who were, okay, but we didn't pitch it that way.
I did go down there. I went down there a couple weeks ago in my RAV4. That's all I have. I don't have a truck or anything. And I was able to get through there just fine. Matter of fact, I would say it was far better than my last experience back in 2019, I think it was, or 2018. And my understanding, too, is that, in terms of getting to the pond, I know that that road can get fairly beat up, but I believe the state made some improvements. Is that right, Link? Thank you. And fire and police have made it clear that they can get down there if needed. So I would not be in favor of any improvements.
I would disagree, and I can't wait to hear what the residents say about passable. And I will never understand why we wouldn't want that asset opened up to the public. And I'd further by saying, we do the same thing on Bell's Neck Road, and that's a cut through from Harwich Center to West Harwich. I'm in there a lot too. People don't race down that road. People go through to enjoy Bell's Neck. So why are we doing one precedent one place and completely another place? And I really will never understand why we have to have the Board of Selectmen meetings to talk about maintaining a town road.
So will we also have an adjudicated lawsuit that shows that we don't have to maintain that road?
No, we don't have to. Didn't say that. It's the right thing to do.
We are now building a house. We've just started building a house on that portion of Hawks Nest past Raptor. Our builder has asked if we can get those filled in. Their building will go on for 12 to 14 months or so. So I think things have changed on that road. Now we are going to be living there. That's going to be our full-time year-round residence. We will be residents. We're actually, obviously taxpayers. So I think things have changed on that part of Seth Whitefield Hawks Nest Road. There's 4 of us. So Wilson, Fava, Holland, and Rosado are all going to be building homes or have already built a home in that area. So I think the nature of that road has really changed a lot. It's for residents now as well. You're shaking your head.
The reason I'm just shaking my head is going into the building. That was the deal. We voted to not upgrade the road. And the developer probably should have told you that. This was an entranceway to a state national park that we were trying to keep in a natural habitat as much as possible. That much hasn't changed. Hawks Nest is really the destination for that road. I get that you're building something there, but it's somewhat like people who buy homes on private cul-de-sacs and the road needs to be upgraded. It's not a town responsibility. That was the whole gist of the state lawsuit that said we were obligated to fix the road, and the state adjudicated that we weren't.
The lot that we purchased was not a part of Bob Freitas's development. It was just a lot that was available, and we built a home on it for our family. I have 3 young kids. We love the area. It's beautiful. It's a treasure. That state forest there. So I think maintaining that road, not upgrading it in any way other than to make it safer for travel. Again, we were just talking a few moments ago about helping children out. I mean, if there was ever an emergency and an ambulance or a fire truck had to come down Round Cove, I'm not even asking for Round Cove, but Hawks Nest, it can be a little tricky at times. Who really owns the road then? Because if it's the county still, then it was a county layout per the surveyor. Is it the county that should be maintaining it? There should be some maintenance there because it doesn't seem to be a private way. It definitely is usable by the public.
A vote was not taken, but seeing the lack of support from the board, McCaskill stated that he would see if the residents would like to have a public hearing to bring the issue back at a later time.
The town of Yarmouth is seeking name suggestions from residents for a new community park to be located along Parker's River at the former site of the drive-in. The park will feature walking paths, a kayak launch, a natural playground, special event space, artist shanties, and more. To suggest a name for the new park, head to yarmouth.ma.us.
It's officially summer and temperatures are rising. High humidity increases the risk of heat-related illnesses, especially for people aged 65 and older, children under 2, and those with chronic illnesses. If you or those you care for fall into those categories, the CDC recommends staying in air-conditioned buildings as much as possible, drink more water than usual, and don't wait until you feel thirsty. Limit your outdoor activity, especially midday, and move slower than usual, making sure to wear loose, lightweight, and light-colored clothing. For more information on heat safety, visit capecod.gov/heat-safety.
The Barnstable County Sheriff's Office would like to make the public aware of yet another phishing scam. Similar to the scams that had been reported recently, the callers impersonate Sheriff's Office staff. The caller will claim you owe a fine or for a missing court date and request that payment to be made via Venmo or Zelle. The callers use real Sheriff's Office employee names and docket numbers. However, Venmo and Zelle are never used to collect fines. If you believe you have been a victim of this scam, call the Sheriff's Office at 508-563-4300.
This Sunday, July 14th, visit the 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building in Harwich for the 204 Thrift and Flea Market. From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy food trucks and a variety of vintage sellers such as High Point Vintage, Cyber Collective Thrift, Tom's Curiosity Shop, and Wicked Thrift. Plus, make sure to check out the Fashion Week of Cape Cod's show at 12 p.m.
Citizens for Global Solutions, a nonprofit organization that has brought together a diverse collective of individuals and organizations throughout the years, has launched a Cape and Islands chapter. Last month, the chapter held its first event, a community conversation, the world's place in America and America's place in the world, with keynote speaker David Sheffer, former U.S. ambassador under the Clinton administration. We stopped by to speak to the ambassador, and he gave us some insights on these types of events.
Today we're here in Harwich, Massachusetts on Cape Cod to hold a community conversations event, which is hosted by the local chapter of Citizens for Global Solutions. And this is an attempt to bring just local people together to talk about the common issues of our time, primarily that relate to our foreign policy and what America's projection is in the world and the world's projection on America. But also it brings to bear how we address those problems at the local level. But also there's quite a bit of divisiveness in the United States today, as anyone can imagine with the election coming up. And this is just an attempt to get people to speak neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, foe to foe at the community level in a very civil atmosphere to try to address some of the tough problems that we deal with, whether it be immigration, whether it be the existential crises of climate change, of energy sources, of food insecurity, of just nuclear war, which can still happen in our time. And it's just an attempt to get local people to talk about those issues among themselves. We've held events in the southwest of the United States with another host, the Simon Charitable Foundation in the southwest, in Santa Fe and in Phoenix, Arizona. And we've had tremendous responses at those events. It really is once you get a lot of people at the local level, at the community level, sitting down at a table and just talking some issues in a very relaxed way, sort of like a living room discussion. It can be extremely productive, and it's a way for people at the community level to take what they see on the news and everything else going on and just talk about it from a local perspective, because that local perspective at the end of the day is what changes the world, and that's what we need to see emerge, particularly in the United States, where we're so fractured. Social media separates us rather than brings us together because we're not sitting together anymore. This is an attempt to sit together, talk to each other, look each other in the eye, laugh together, have some civil argument together, the way you would in a living room setting. I think the lesson that came out was that the more one understands not only the complexity, but also the clarity of some of these international issues that erupt on our agenda all the time, whether it be trade issues, immigration issues, war and peace, which is always confronting us. People kind of come around to a fairly common point of view about how to address those issues. There's always going to be a division between those in the United States who have a more isolationist view of their role in the world, and those who have a more, shall we say, engaging perspective on how the United States should engage with the world. There's always going to be that division. But I think these conversations help sort of bridge those two perspectives for a more, sort of a better understanding of how important these international issues are to our daily lives here in America.
To learn more about Citizens for Global Solutions, you can visit globalsolutions.org. Coming up after the break, Chatham's Marconi Maritime Center. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Maxie Davidson.
And I'm Lauren Williamson. Did you know you can learn Morse code in the same building where Navy personnel once monitored messages from German U-boats prowling the Atlantic during World War II? Chatham's Marconi Maritime Center, home of the world's greatest coastal station, includes the Marconi RCA Wireless Museum, featuring interactive exhibits and more. We stopped by to learn more about the unique story behind this historic ship-to-shore radio station.
This is the largest coastal radio station in the United States. Served for about 75 years, from 1921 into 1997, serving ships at sea. Its history is unique, built originally by Guglielmo Marconi and his company, but then taken over by the RCA Corporation, and RCA ran it for almost 75 years. What we did here was help ships at sea communicate with the land, and prior to what we were doing starting in the 1920s, ships at sea were completely isolated. Once they went over the horizon, you never knew when or if they were coming back. And now they had a way of actually talking to people overseas. This is all done on wireless communication using Morse code as the vehicle for talking to a ship offshore. Marconi was under contract with the government of Norway to create a system, a station-to-station, shore-to-shore communication using wireless technology. Marconi's genius really was extending the reach of wireless communication, and it was able to, in 1901, to go across the Atlantic for the very first time. So he had began to build a nation or an international telecommunication capability, and had a space in Wellfleet where he had built his original facility. But Wellfleet was losing ground to the ocean very quickly. He started looking for a larger opportunity, space and opportunity, and came to Chatham and started building this particular building in 1914. And this was completed, unfortunately, just about the time World War I started. And the United States government decided it wasn't the best thing to have a foreign national own the most capable ship-to-shore and shore-to-shore wireless communication facility. So they took it over during the war. At the end of the war, they began to give it back to Marconi. However, they decided the same issue came up. Do we need a foreign national owning the ship-to-shore capability? So they induced the GE Corporation to create RCA. So the RCA company, which we came to know as the largest telecommunications electronics company in the world, started right here in Chatham, basically, with a small Radio Marine Corporation of America at the beginning. Wireless communication became advanced rapidly during World War I and again in World War II. And by the time satellites began to be put into orbit, wireless using Morse code became kind of a redundant thing. In 1977, the government, an international group of governments got together and agreed that satellite communication would be the only way that things would be done in the future, and they gave a 20-year phase-out period. So we went from 1977, that was 1997, when the last of ships that we talked to was part of our world. And, closed the doors, walked out, and never looked back. And then this became a bit of history, and that was then recreated and resurrected, if you will, by the Chatham Marconi Maritime Museum, which is what we're in today.
To learn more about upcoming events or how to volunteer, you can visit chathammarconi.org.
Don't miss Yarmouth Recreation Summer Movie Series. On July 24th, August 7th, and August 21st, head to Mattakese Middle School for movies, cornhole, ladder golf, and games on the field. Movies on the docket will be Zootopia, Miracle, Cars, and Jaws on their respective dates. Yarmouth encourages bringing blankets, chairs, snacks, and bug spray. Movies will begin at dusk.
Love Live Local's 12th festival season begins on July 28th at Allison Park in Hyannis. This festive gathering showcases the unique charm of Cape Cod with local makers, musicians, and crafted food and beverages. The event is family-friendly with a myriad of lawn games and a kids zone run by the Maritime Museum. Participants will be able to climb aboard a fire truck and attend a story time presented by Postitopia. Stop by from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
From now until October, check out this season's Artist Spotlight featuring work by Elaine Tata at Barnstable Town Hall. The collection of oil paintings titled I Need to Paint Because I Must reflects Elaine's life as a full-time artist on the Cape. The exhibition is free and can be seen in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room and the Selectmen's Conference Room.
This year, the town of Dennis implemented new restrictions at Mayflower, Chapin Memorial, and Bayview beaches on the 4th of July to curb disorderly conduct. While the Dennis Police Department reported no major incidents at the three beaches, they remained busy into the early morning, responding to calls about loud, unruly, and violent behavior throughout the town. The Sailing Cow Cafe took to Facebook to make the public aware of a group of teens who stole the pride flag from outside their business and burned it in the adjacent parking lot. Others reported separate incidences of burnt pride flags, illegal and dangerous fireworks, underage drinking, and violent and disruptive behavior. The Dennis Police Department stated these incidents were mostly committed by teenagers from out of town.
Join organizations like Amplify POC, Health Imperatives, PFLAG, and many more for the 2024 International Festival at the Hyannis Village Green. Come learn about immigrant-friendly organizations, enjoy food from Junior Betts Barbecue, and live music from the Drumma Queens, The Fringe, and more. The festival will take place on July 14th from 12 to 5 p.m. with a rain date of July 21st.
And lastly this evening, we send it to Ryan Downs with a recap of this week in sports.
Welcome back to the Cape Media News Sports segment. I'm your host and local sports guy, Ryan Downs. The Cape Cod Baseball League concludes its 4th week today. Each team has played at least 20 games, which puts us at the halfway point of their season. So let's get into what happened over the past 10 games. Starting off with the standings, we have YD atop of the East with a 14-6 record in point differential of plus 29. The Red Sox are the team to beat right now as they went a league best 7-3 over the last 10 games to claim the top spot in the East. Their offense is actually the only team in the East with a positive point differential. While their pitching continues to dominate, they lead the league in just about every pitching stat, including lowest combined ERA, most strikeouts averaging almost 11 a game, all while allowing the fewest number of hits. This past week, shortstop Wewa Aloy from Arkansas was named Player of the Week and put up video game numbers. A .409 batting average, a 1.227 slugging percentage, and a 1.636 OPS with 9 hits, 6 home runs, and 11 RBIs in just 5 games. On July 4th, he became the 13th player in Cape League history to hit 3 home runs in a single game. In second, we got Chatham with a 10-10 record and -3 point differential. Chatham has moved up 1 spot in the East since our last recap and stayed consistent by going 5-5 over their last 10 games, just like their first 10 games. This past week, left-hand pitcher Micah Ashman, who just completed his junior year at the University of Utah, was named Pitcher of the Week. Ashman is eligible for the MLB draft later this week, and scouting reports say his command over his fastball could get him selected. But until then, he'll continue to suit up for the Anglers. In third is Brewster with a 9-11 record and -18 point differential. The Whitecaps are essentially in the same place as our last recap, being tied for third. They could fall back into fourth or keep third, depending on how their next game goes. Harwich is also tied for third with a record of 9-11. Despite having a run differential of 0, they have the second best point differential in the division. The Mariners have dropped from second in the East to being tied for third. They have gone just 3-7 in their last 10 games and are currently on a 6-game losing streak to put them in such a position. And Orleans wraps up the East with a record of 5-15. The Firebirds continue to struggle. They have by far the worst point differential at -41, which is more than double the second to last place point differential. The Gatemen remain atop the West, but narrowly, as Cotuit is closely behind them. With a record of 14-5-1 and point differential of +16, Wareham has been carried by their offense this season, which just so happens to lead the league in the majority of categories, such as batting average, slugging percentage, and hits. They currently have 3 players within top 10 batting averages and OPS. Cotuit comes in at second in the West, represented by a record of 12-8, with a point differential of +22. They started off their season only 1-3, before going on a tear and winning 6 games in a row. The Kettlers stayed hot to remain in that second place spot as they went 6-4 over their last 10 games. Hyannis is right there with Wareham and Cotuit with a record of 11-8-1 and point differential of +27. The Harbor Hawks have been kept alive all year by their bats. They have the most runs scored, most RBIs as a team, and the highest on-base percentage. And last year's champs need to figure something out quick if they want to have a chance to go all the way again this year. Bourne currently has a record of 7-11-2 and a point differential of -13. They have 2 games resulting in ties that separates them from Falmouth in last place. Which brings up Falmouth, the last place team in the West, with a record of 7-13 and a point differential of -19. If they can stay on track with Bourne record-wise, then they have a chance of knocking out the former champs before playoffs even start. The MLB draft will commence this Sunday the 14th and run through the 16th. Many first-round hopefuls have already spent summers here, including the projected #1 overall pick and last year's Cape Cod Baseball League MVP and batting champion, Travis Bazzana. The first overall picks in the MLB drafts from 2018 to last year, aside from 2022, were all former Cape Cod Baseball League players. Players who are drafted by a professional organization often are left with the option to finish the season with the Cape League team or answer the call and move up to the organization's minor league system. Next week, there will be 2 games presented on NESN. The first being Monday night's 7 p.m. matchup when the Hyannis Harbor Hawks travel to Doran Park to face the Bourne Braves. On Wednesday, the second game presented on NESN will also feature the Harbor Hawks on the road, but this time they'll be traveling to Gov Fuller Field to take on the Falmouth Commodores, also for a 7 p.m. start. And also on Wednesday, the top team in the East, YD, will travel to take on the top team in the West, Wareham. That game starts at 6 p.m. and is sure to be a great matchup. That's it for this week's Sports Update. Back to you, Lauren and Maxie.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have a story that you would like to see covered, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org.
Tune in every week for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 26, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV.
And be sure to follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For Cape Media News, I'm Lauren Williamson.
And I'm Maxie Davidson.